And welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it just happens to be one of your favorite places to listen to podcasts later on in the week. Is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey, as we get ready to talk about what's going on in the wide world of sports. December 18th, we are exactly 7 days away from Christmas time. We got a fun little moment in sports. The NBA Cup wrapping up, some movement in the NFL. We got some trophies and awards getting out. Oh, and playoffs, not even 48 hours away.
Yeah, it's a good time for sports fans in this period of season because we'll have football pretty much every day from now until the new year. And that's a wild thought. Just a wild thought again.
And most of it being good football too, as well. There'll be a handful of those like Tostitos, Pasta, Fiesta, Fritos bowls featuring the backups for one team versus the third stringers from another, unfortunately, while the rest are in the transfer portal. We'll have Auburn's bowl. We'll have other bowl games going on in between. And so, there'll be some football going on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just a reminder of how bad that team has been all year. But it's okay, right? Because Jackson Arnold's coming to the Plains. But yeah, it's not going to save anything. But anyways, I digress. No, it's gonna be fun next couple weeks. It's always fun around the holiday season, being around family, and then getting to rub it in if your family members are a fan of the opposing teams. So
hey, you know what? At least Auburn's really good at basketball, despite their best player being a little banged up right now.
That is the important thing.
Bruce Pearl, you are our savior. But speaking of basketball, I think that's as good a time as any to transition us into our appropriately named first segment, known as the tip-off, brought to you by good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code HighLowSports for $20 off your first purchase on any sports tickets, concert tickets, anything you get from there. $20 off. And we mentioned basketball, so we're going to go and jump into the World Cup. Or not the World Cup, excuse me, the NBA Cup, officially wrapping up, as we do have worldwide taking over the Cup. Giannis with a triple-double. Milwaukee, after a 2-8 miserable start where we were basically cursing them for falling apart, they found themselves hoisting up a trophy. It's not the trophy they want to hoist up, but it's a good stepping point as they do take out the Thunder, missing Chet Holmgren. We'll go and start with the obvious one. How about the NBA Cup? Second year in a row. How are we feeling about it? What do we think? So, besides the depths of hell-looking courts, because some of those are hideous, but the NBA Cup itself.
Yeah. How do I say this nicely? I personally love the courts. I love the City Connect jerseys just because it's different, it's unique, it's fun.
That Rockets one, though, that looked like a fiery pit of hell. How are we feeling about that one?
I honestly loved it. I thought that was kind of cool.
That's how you know we're going to hell first class tickets. Like,
first I'm flying the plane. It's okay. But no, the thing about the NBA Cup is it's a joke. Players, $500,000 to these NBA players today, kind of a joke. Like rookies, it makes sense.
The 15th man on the bench, definitely.
Yeah. 12 through 15, they care. The 515,000 or 550,000, whatever it is they're getting for the Bucks, for them it's like 13, 14, and 15 cares, or 13 and 14 cares. And Darvin Ham cares for some reason because it is his World Cup, by the way, undefeated in the NBA Cup. But honestly, I don't really care about the NBA Cup. We jokingly talked about it when the Cavs were still undefeated and they were going into the NBA Cup. It's like, does it even matter if they lose? Because it doesn't count for anything. Like, that's how I feel about it, because it feels like it should be a showcase event. Like, they have the G League showcase. They literally have it coming up the end of this week, actually starting today and going through the rest of this weekend. They have the G League showcase. That I care about more than the NBA Cup, because the NBA Cup just kind of feels like a weird joke. Like, for soccer fans, it feels like the Lamar Hunt Cup, U.S. Open Cup for American soccer fans. And in Europe, it's, I don't know, some FA Cup that doesn't matter anymore. Not really the FA Cup, because that still matters to some teams, but for the majority of teams, it doesn't. Like, it feels like it's a thing for teams struggling to find their way, the obvious good team, and then some coach that doesn't belong as a head coach that's a really good assistant for some reason that just can't lose. Like, that's what it feels like, and it really feels like it should be a G League showcase, if I'm being honest. Like, it doesn't feel like I should be watching this as like it's a mid-season tournament. No, it's not. It's not that. It's a joke. Just exhibition games in the middle of the season. More opportunities for players to get hurt that don't mean anything, if we're being honest about it. And that's the thing I think that I don't enjoy about it because I don't mind in-season tournaments if they mean something. As a soccer fan, I love in-season tournaments that mean something. In this case, it just doesn't mean enough for me to even bother watching. Like, defense optional in these type of games. I don't care enough to watch the offense that's going to be bad because offense optional as well. So yeah, it's just I don't know. It's a hard thing for me to watch. I had high hopes for it. Year 2 has proven that maybe I shouldn't have had high hopes in the beginning.
I'm gonna take a positive spin on it. I'm gonna for some reason almost new year, new me. So we're gonna turn a positive twist on this. Things I do like about it. 2 years they've done it now, and you've had LeBron James trying hard to win it, and Giannis trying hard to win it, like going hard to win it. So at least 2 of your bigger names are trying to win the whole thing. They're not taking it off like.
To be fair, Giannis has to buy diapers now. So as he said, that money's already spent.
I still counts though. You still got him giving you a 30, 20 triple double in the game that matters. So I do like that you have 2 of the bigger stars going after it, trying to win it. So it's not like other situations where they don't try very hard, like the All-Star game per se. I think it's a step above that. I will say too, I think if this continues at this rate, I think it could almost. It's not obviously not a huge deal. We just mentioned like it doesn't have any implications long term, which I'll get to. I think could maybe change that, but I think for those elite players, it could still be something that ends up like in your quote unquote hardware case in your bag. Like, 2-time world champion, 3-time NBA Cup champion. Is it going to make you the GOAT? No, but if you get enough other accolades, it could be a differentiator. Maybe it's just like what the dunk contest used to be. Considering no one cares about the dunk contest anymore, so I think this could almost take that place in a way. It's just another notch on the belt for the elite, like the higher up elite players that try hard for it. Plus, you're hooking up your teammates with that 500,000, which for some it goes a long ways. For others, like you said, for Giannis, it's like, okay, well, that's just all baby diapers. So
I mean, even the mid tier players, it doesn't really go that far, and the contracts are getting now. But yeah, I mean, I think to your point, yeah, I think you're right.
It's not what they wanted, obviously, and it's not what we were hoping for, but it's.
I think the thing that bothers me the most, it's just on random days. Yeah. Like there's no set day for the NBA Cup, and I think that's what bothers me. The NBA Cup was on a Tuesday. That's what? Why are you having a championship for a trophy in the NBA on a Tuesday? We're not going up in the club on a Tuesday. That's not what we're doing here. We're not doing anything like that. Like you're just throwing guys in Vegas on a Tuesday instead of on a Friday, a Saturday, or a Sunday where you already have games happening. Like, why not use the day on Sunday to have these and move the other games that don't matter in the 82 game regular season that they're already probably going to sit out of anyways? Like, make these games, if you're the NBA and you really want to make this work, make them matter, because make them matter to the fans. Because right now on a Tuesday, it happened and I was like, oh yeah, that's tonight. Oh, well, I guess I'll just check it in the morning. That's the type of vibe I got from this championship, honestly.
I think they just need to up the stakes a little bit more, besides just a nice feather in the cap, which it is at this point, and just to they've done everything to make it stand out except up the stakes, basically. They've done everything else possible. We're not even going to get into the NBA viewership numbers and that tomfoolery that's going around, as everyone has seen, but what I think might help in this situation, maybe the winner gets home court advantage in the playoffs or something like that. If you win it, you get home court. Put something on the line. Or like the MLB All-Star game where the Bucks won, so the Eastern Conference champion will get home court advantage in the finals. Which maybe sucks because then you're helping do Boston a favor if Boston gets there. I get that, the issues, but it's going to get those elite teams that truly are going for a playoff spot, like these 2 teams in the Bucks and the Thunder, which 2 best teams in basketball the last 2 weeks, really. You look at even the last month or so, give or take, when you look at records and everything. So at least it lined up that way. It wasn't randomly like the Hawks versus the Wizards or something weird, where it's like, oh, okay, clearly they're just whatever. So at least it made sense in that regard. So maybe just up the stakes. Home court advantage for that team if they get to the playoffs.
That would be wild.
That does also have the double-edged sword, because let's say the Bucks do it, then they just basically squeak in by 1 game the rest of the way and they half-ass it. Then it's a double-edged sword that way. So maybe it's just that conference gets home court advantage. I don't know. Just throw something in there, I think. Just put a little seasoning on there.
Look, to your point, I love the idea of them having home court, but what if we take it a step further? Maybe not home court, but automatic buy into the playoffs. Or automatic buy into the top 6. So even if you're outside of the top 6, you get that 6th place spot at the end of the year, and you don't have to do the play-in games.
That is definitely going to screw somebody over later, and I love the idea of that, which would be kind of hilarious because I think it gives those cusp teams an advantage, and those upper tier teams, in theory, it's like, okay, this means we could actually coast later because every
Yeah.
team cares about coasting at some
And
point. So I don't mind that either.
and then if you aren't in the, or if you already are well into the top 6, then you get home court advantage. Like it's 2-tier. Like if you make the playoffs by yourself, you get home court advantage. But if you're not going to make the playoffs, you're going to make a play-in, or you're not even going to make the playoffs at all, then you get the automatic bye. Whether that be kicking out a team out of the play-in or getting a 6th place seed if you were in the play-in. Like I think that would be just a huge, crazy piece of like randomness that would just impact the watchability of the NBA. It would make me want to watch the NBA Cup way more.
Or even just something small, like have it count as one more win on the standings if you win the whole thing. I know the percentages is weird because you got 83 wins compared 83 games compared to 82, but if it's a 52-52 tie later, you get the break there or something like that. So
It's like
I
worth
don't know,
3 games or something, 2-3 games. That would be crazy.
something like that. Like just add something so it means something towards the NBA championship run, because the NBA keeps doing these different weird ideas. Like we see how they shake up the All-Star game, shaking it up with this, just different things like that, which are fun at first, but they have they don't sustain really because they don't impact the greater goal. And unfortunately, today's basketball landscape is simply ring counting and talking basically complete and utter discourse over every minuscule thing comparatively.
Yeah.
So I think that's all anyone cares about at this point is, all right, let's just get to the playoffs and try and chase the ring. Everything else between that's just, if they don't care as much, why should we care as much? Which I think is kind of the sentiment you were just emulating a little bit ago. All the other stuff's cool, but in the grand scheme of things, if they're not going to care as much, why should the fans care as much in theory? So I think just add something to it to make it better. Home court advantage, extra game in the standings, automatic avoiding the play-in as long as you make the playoffs, something like that. Or maybe the
I've
two teams
never
that make it get the automatic avoid, then whoever wins it gets like guaranteed home court in the first round. Something like just something in there, make it worthwhile.
I've never heard a better case for a point system to go into the NBA as far as like in the standings, like they do in soccer, like they do in hockey, where you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, 0 points for a loss. So in this case, you get 3 points for the win, 0 points for the loss, but then you get a bonus win if you win the cup. There you go. You get an extra 3 points, and that could get you that nudge up into a play-in, that nudge up into a 6 seed, that nudge up into a 1 seed. Like that could be crazy.
Here's a better one. Let's bring back the BCS system from back in the 2000s and just apply it to the NBA. So style points count now too. If you have the chance to cook someone, you got to cook them.
No BCS, no BCS standings.
You know, if we're gonna mix things up and pull random things out, if we're gonna do all-star drafts, that's something we could do. Just throwing ideas out there. But let us know down in the comments what you all thought of the NBA Cup and if you even watched it as well. But speaking of the BCS, we're gonna talk about someone who wasn't part of the BCS but was in the college football playoff last year, Michael Penix, who no longer is in college football, but he looks like he's heading to the starting lineup for the Falcons as Kirk Cousins, after 14 games and roughly $15 million per win, give or take so far, is going to be heading to the bench, as it looks like they have decided to bench him after a 1 touchdown and 11 interception last 6 games or something like that. It's been a miserable go for Kirk Cousins recently. How are we feeling? Is what we'd say is consensusly one of our 2 favorite quarterbacks from last year's drafts. Not necessarily what we'd say is the best, but 2 of our favorites, I think, is a good way to word it. Definitely one of our favorites from last college season.
Yeah, easily. Probably the second most prepared quarterback coming into the draft in my eyes.
Which is the beneficiary of being like 30 when you come out, just like Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has the experience. No, what's funny about Kirk Cousins is made about $10 million per touchdown and about $10 million per pick. A little more than $10 million per pick, but $10 million on the dot per touchdown. That's wild. Depending if he ever plays again. Obviously, he has a multi-year contract, but like just for the total value of it.
4 years and no trade clause. Like he's got time.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm happy about this. I think this should have happened. I didn't think there was anything like grievously wrong with the way Kirk Cousins has been playing up until the last 3 games, where it's 1 in 11 touchdown to interception ratio, something crazy like that. Like that was the moment I was like, okay, hold on, guy. Like too much shopping at Belk, too much shopping at Kohl's. Maybe it's because Atlanta doesn't get the same Midwest winters So he's just like not in the Midwest like mindset right now. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's not good. He's playing like it's summertime, and I don't mean that in a good way. Obviously, football doesn't play in the summer for the NFL, so that should tell you anything. But no, I mean, Michael Penix, I'm interested to see what he can do. And this seems like a situation with Atlanta. You're going to do it early, find out what Penix can do. And if Kirk can figure himself out, maybe in the offseason, maybe in week 17, I don't know, whatever they want to do with that. But give him an opportunity to go into an offseason and battle with Penix and Cousins and see what they can do. But give Penix this opportunity to really show what he can do in year one with those weapons, because those weapons right now are healthy. Like Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Right now, you can say Ray McLeod out there as well, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. Those are weapons in today's day and age. And that offensive line isn't a scrub by any means. I know they haven't been as good as they could be. But yeah, it's like let's be honest too. This not like this defense has really helped out Kirk at all. And during the season, they've been a rough go of things after like week 4 or 5. But at the same time, you throw 16 picks in your season so far. It's not good. So, you got to make a change somewhere. Quarterback's the most obvious point. You don't have, it's not like you're falling off and like going to a Blake Bortles type of situation. Hopefully, you believe in Mike Penix. You think he can do it. You think he can figure out this offense and make it work. Obviously, he's shown something in practice. So it's like, all right, well, let's just make the change, see what happens, see what we have here. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it works, it's not the first time we've ever seen a guy with the type of talent that Kirk Cousins has be benched for a rookie who goes on to start for a very long time if Michael Penix can figure it out.
I still don't think Kirk Cousins is healthy. That man's almost 40 and is coming off an Achilles, and it hasn't even been a year, or it's been just over a year. Like that's been a long time. Like that's not something that people can recover from healthy in their 20s. It takes a minute, especially a quarterback where I know you're not running, but you are pushing off your footwork.
Terrell Suggs said 16 months was how long it took him to feel better.
Exactly. And he's a defensive end / linebacker who tried coming back after 5 or 6 months and was clearly hampered. And he was young 30s. Kirk Cousins is an old Kohl's shopping Midwest dad of a man right now. He was never necessarily going to. It was almost unrealistic for him to bounce back right away. And you could see it in their offense as well. He does not go under center unless it's a run play. They spend so much of the time in the pistol or the shotgun. If it's a shotgun, it's a pass. So like they give away so much of the offense from that. He can't move. But he's never been able to move. So that's nothing new.
But even his mobility is taking an obvious hit. Like it's noticeable.
Exactly. He knows too, because once like the first read and a half's not there, he's like, I can't really scoot. And he's almost panic throwing in some cases. Not as bad as Derek Carr, because he's not getting his guys decapitated at least. But you can see it's ending up. He's just not quite trusting or feeling it like he used to, because I think he feels where he's hampered. He can't move. They can't roll him out the same. They can't bootleg him. He can't run the counter footwork in the backfield. And I think we see a lot of that. What's funny is with Kirk Cousins, what we expected was them to air it out a little bit more. With Desmond Ridder, we expected it to be Bijan Robinson. Last year, for some reason, Bijan never got the damn ball except every other game. This year, Bijan's getting 25 carries a game. Like, make it make sense. So maybe with Michael Penix, they're going to split the difference. Because like you said, Darnell Mooney's been awesome this year. Kyle Pitts. Any given week, he's awesome. But most of the time, we'll see, basically. Ray McLeod's been fun. We're just going to skip past the Kyle Pitts one. And then Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier are awesome. Drake London's been awesome when he gets opportunities. Like, he's been so good. And Michael Penix looks at him and is like, wow, you're like Roma Dunze, but a little bit better and a little bit like thicker built. I could still just randomly throw you jump balls like I did Roma all of last year. Maybe they make a run. They're not out of the playoff hunt right now. They're a game and a half behind Tampa, I think, right now, because of a 4-game losing streak. They get themselves right back into it. And you got the Giants next. Like you got Carolina coming up. You got a relatively winnable next few games. Michael Penix could easily go in there, look pretty solid, put the ball up for Drake London. Defense, like you mentioned, though, for the amount of talent on that team, that defense has been atrocious. You have 3 guys that made either a Pro Bowl or multiple-time All-Pros in that secondary, and they've been getting cooked by everybody. Matthew Judon, his red sleeves, he needs to change sleeves because the red sleeves aren't working as much right now. Grady Jarrett has his moments. He's the one kind of bright spot. Trey Anderson's been hurt. Like they've underperformed dramatically. Offensively, they can't stay on the field. I don't mind. I think getting Penix out there's fun. Kirk Cousins, maybe he reunites with Kevin Stefanski and the Browns. Maybe he waives his no trade clause for that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing at that point, but I'm excited to see what Penix can do because I think he also runs a 4.5. He doesn't run very often. With his injury history, you don't want him to run too much, but there's going to be a little bit of there's going to be some juice that comes with that, and you get to break him in against the Giants. Sorry, Giants, but like you're going to get opportunities because that team, even against this Falcons defense, they're not scoring a lot, most likely.
Yeah, well, we don't even know who's going to play quarterback for the Giants. But one last thing on the Falcons: they are one game back. They are 7-7 to Tampa's 8-6,
and they have the tiebreakers. They beat Tampa twice too.
So Penix doesn't have to do a lot to get this W. It's just a matter of this offense going and getting him time to break himself in. Now, with that said, he's a quarterback. He's always been a quarterback, like a gunslinging type of quarterback, where he wants the ball in his hands. He wants to make those decisions. See what he can do. I'm not saying throw him out there like Caleb right now and see if he can just handle everything and get sacked 17 times or whatever it is in 3 games. Like it's a ridiculous thing what's happening in Chicago, and I don't think we're going to see that with Atlanta. But at the same time, like let's just cover our bases here. Let's see a little more Bijan, and then let's air it out to Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Ray and use Ray's talents. The ball in his hands is the talent for him. Like the moment the ball is in his hands, it's kind of a show at that point in time. It's Tavon Austin redux. Like it's not necessarily Tavon Austin amazingness, but it is impressive to watch nonetheless.
He's a punt returner, get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, exactly. However you have to do that, watch it happen and let it go. And then, Darnell Mooney is an absolute weapon out there that doesn't get used enough. And I think he's just a guy that give him an opportunity. He was the number 1 guy in Chicago before DJ Moore got there. And he was still impressive, just couldn't get in the end zone. And so it's just a matter of, giving him an opportunity and protecting him just a little bit. Because as you said, his injury history speaks for itself. So that is one concern you have there. But thankfully, Kirk Cousins is your backup now. So in case something happens, old reliable Midwestern dad comes in. And then you feel pretty good about the future. So yeah, it's just a matter of, play it safe. But at the same time, let's not play it too safe. And let's see what Michael Penix can actually do.
Let's treat him kind of like they do with like mid-season Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix in the mid-season after that first month or so. Don't do the Caleb thing where it's like, hey, go be a 13-year pro and then die. Let's not go that ridiculous. But let's let him out there, but not with the reins fully on. Maybe like let him do a play action bomb on the first play of the game just to air that arm out, loosen it up. And if it works, God, that confidence is going to be sky high out of the gate.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine that your first pass is a play action 65-yard bomb to Drake London? Like, because we know he throws the deep ball as well as anybody. He can sling it, or even a 15-yard out route. One of the hardest.
I was going to say, if it's not a go ball, give him the 15-yard out and just watch him work. Because I think that's the big thing, right? If he can throw that in the NFL, he threw it so well in college. If he throws that in the NFL, talk about confidence. That's one of the hardest throws to ever make as a quarterback. Is a 15-yard out from the opposite hash. I'm not saying make him do that, play one, but on a short side, maybe you run that 15-yard out. Just let him get his confidence. Let him know that he can hit that receiver with an NFL defense coming at him. Like that's a different type of level of expertise. And if he doesn't, the guy has the mentality to fight through it. It's not. And again, I feel like I'm taking shots at Caleb right now, and that's not my intention. But Caleb has always not been mentally strong. Like it's obvious when he's losing, he hates losing, but like it affects him negatively. With Michael Penix, when he's losing, he wants to win more than he wants to lose, if that makes sense. Like he's fighting for the win, not fighting just not to lose. And that's a different mindset that I think he's shown through college. I mean, you don't go through Indiana and end up at a place like Washington and then get to the playoffs the way they did without having that type of mindset. So, it'll be interesting to see if that transitions into the NFL now. Now we actually can say every rookie quarterback that we were interested in seeing and play in the NFL this year is now playing. So,
sorry, JJ McCarthy, you're the one left out on this one.
I said interested in seeing.
Okay, fair. You know what? We'll say Sam Darnold is JJ McCarthy then. We'll just say they cancel each other out at this point.
Sam's still better. Anyways,
the one beneficiary that Penix does have is his offensive line is not going to get him murdered, most likely, because that offensive line, as you mentioned, has been pretty solid for the most part, blocking for a negative mobility statue. Now you put Penix back to like he has that beneficiary going for him compared to like Caleb as well, who's basically every single play is die. The play starts with him dying, basically. Then
then the ones he he has the time. He feels like he's about to get hit and rolls into pressure. So it's a double-edged sword there.
Exactly. Can only take so many hits without and just stand there the same without getting a little bit uneasy for sure. But Michael Penix hasn't had to do that because he's had 15 weeks of not having to get hit. So I'm curious. We'll definitely see how that comes out. But one thing Michael Penix did not quite do in college, but he got very, very close, was walk away with the Heisman Trophy, finishing second place last year. Speaking of the Heisman Trophy, though, this year, Travis Hunter, the two-way star for Colorado, is taking home the Heisman. Cornerback, receiver, But the question, too, is did he deserve it? Did he not against Ashton Genty, who we did put out a poll on X, and go and take a look right here as well. Out of everyone who voted, 63% said no, it should have been Ashton Genty. 35-ish percent said yes, Hunter was right. 2% said neither, but they didn't comment below, so they were just kind of being jerks. So I'm kind of mad at them for that. Like, what should it have been Cam Ward then? Like, let me know who you want. Don't just put neither. But so far,
I'm looking at Jared right now. Is that he was probably the neither?
God damn it, Jared. But look at this too. We talked a little bit about it before because it felt like a foregone conclusion. Got really close. Genty actually, I believe, had more first place votes, but I think Hunter had more other votes. I might have had that backwards, but the voting was very, very close. One of the closer ones in years. So when we look at this, I think the question also becomes: did Travis Hunter's ability to be so good on both sides of the ball, or Ashton Genty kind of threatening Barry Sanders, Melvin Gordon, and some of those absolutely asinine rushing records that we've seen in recent years? And I'll just say, this one's tough. I think Travis deserved the Heisman. I won't take it away, but it does feel weird that Ashton Genty is not getting a Heisman. That's what sucks, is they both happened in the same year. And I hate that because that's not a real answer, because I also hate the fact that it's literally glass half full or glass half full. They're both absolutely awesome and deserve it. You can look in recent years. We'll even go back to your favorite one, Mark Ingram getting the Heisman Trophy over Toby Gerhart. Both of these guys would deserve it over to Mark Ingram in that situation. Arguably even Toby Gerhart at that point too. It's like, why can't we just take one of these and plug him in one of those other years where it was questionable at best? That's how I feel. But I feel okay with Travis Hunter taking home the Heisman here. It sucks because Ashton Genty was that awesome, and he's still playing right now on top of it in a playoff game. Well, not playing this week because he has a bye. So it's interesting, but I'm curious what your thought on as well too, because we both talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and we were both really on the Ashton Genty train. But at this, and you also as a Colorado Buffs fan on the side yourself, on the side, how do you feel about it?
On the big side,
Like on the far side?
yeah. Okay. We talked about this, and while my personal belief is that Ashton Genty should have been the Heisman, I'm very much in the same boat as you, where Travis Hunter is well deserving of a Heisman in his own right. And this is my LeBron MJ conversation. And you've heard me talk about this before. There is something called the best athlete and the best college football player. The best athlete, without a doubt, was Travis Hunter this year. The best college football player this year, the one that was the most important to his team and to the success, without a doubt, is Ashton Genty. And it's which side do you really like is which side you're going to roll with. Like, do you like the highlights? Do you like the incredible story that is Travis Hunter? Or do you like the absolutely insane, unstoppable force that is Ashton Genty running for 3 quarters and nearly breaking Barry Sanders' record? Like, that's where you're at with this. And for me, obviously, as a lineman in my life, in my mind, I like the running back aspect more so than the outside guy who doesn't have to stick his nose in and get tackles on defense, and he doesn't like to run over the middle on offense. I tend to choose the running back. But I still agree that Travis Hunter is 100% the best athlete. He shows that, and athletes win a lot of things. But I feel like in the history of the college football, they've tended to be the guys that are overlooked. And so for that reason, I'm happy to see that Travis Hunter did win a Heisman, won a bunch of other awards this past weekend as well. But specifically the Heisman, I think like it shows that they're finally recognizing somebody who is outstandingly talented by being a pure athlete. Like they are like because you see it in recruiting, you see the athlete mark next to somebody's name, but they never really turn into anything. And as far as the awards go at the end of the year, you occasionally get a Devin Hester but again, Devin Hester wasn't really up for a Heisman award. Desmond Howard Probably the only one I can think of that has an opportunity that you can say was an athlete, or, Charles Woodson. Those two are the guys that you look at as, okay, well, I guess they were athletes, but they didn't win. Oh, well, I guess one did, but he was really a receiver at the time. The other, no. But Travis did, and he did so convincingly. Now, he did have more first place votes, just to kind of, to your point of the voting. Travis had 552 first place to 309 for Genty. It was the rest of the votes that Ashton Genty had a massive overhaul. So he had Ashton Genty had 517 second place to Travis Hunter's 261. And then third place, he had 56 to Travis Hunter's 53. With that said, it's very obvious what people thought of the first place vote, right? That's how many ballots they show up on. A majority of them had all right, yeah, Travis is my guy. That's fair. And I don't blame anybody for that. So I like it. I don't hate it. I wish Ashton Genty got more love, though, in these awards, because it feels like everybody's discounting him because Boise State, despite playing a Pac-12 schedule, they're like, it's Boise State, but it's a Pac-12 schedule. But it's Boise State. It's like, no, that's not how you decide a Heisman. But I digress.
They played Oregon, the number one undefeated team, and lost by 3 because Ashton Genty gave you 203 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That was
Ashton Genty's bad game had 137 yards in it.
This was a tough Heisman race. My favorite part about this, though, there was no chance in HE double hockey sticks it was going to a quarterback, which was, and this is not even a quarterback hate post. It's a MVP in the NFL and Heisman in college. It almost feels like when in doubt, give it to the quarterback. Just like a couple years ago when Devontae Smith won it, Mac Jones was very heavily in that conversation. As awesome as he was that year, that was Devontae Smith's award by a landslide. I feel like maybe Trevor Lawrence on an outside shot looking in, but that felt like that was Devontae Smith's year, and we were all living in it. So that's what I thought was neat this year, is that what didn't turn into a quarterback award. 2 other quarterbacks did get in there. One of them didn't really have a Heisman Trophy season statistically, but when you're quarterbacking the best team, that's kind of what got him in there. But either way, I think it was that? I
said Dylan Gabriel was just smooth with it all year.
There's
no better way to say it. He did the right thing every opportunity he had.
He's been awesome too. I look forward to seeing him in the playoff run too. But I think they got it right, but at the same time, it almost feels criminal that Ashton Genty did not get it. He did get the Maxwell Award, which is arguably the second best award you can get, especially for an offensive college football player. But still, it's it feels wrong, but it's also right. Just like if it was the other way, it would be wrong, but also right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things you kind of have to chalk up to what it is. But to your point about not being a quarterback award, 4 non-quarterbacks were in the top 10. Cam Scatabo ended up at 5th. And Tyler Warren, a tight end from Penn State, was the 7th highest finisher in the Heisman race. And shout out Army's Bryson Daly, who finished 6th.
Yeah, it's a good thing they did the voting before that Army-Navy game, though, because my goodness. I do love seeing Tyler Warren in there as a tight end / running back / quarterback / fullback / whatever they need.
Goal line quarterback / everything else.
Maybe even play linebacker at some point if they want. But let us know down below in the comments, guys, what you thought of the Heisman race. Did you think Travis Hunter, they got it right? Or did you think it should have gone to Ashton Genty? Or you want that 2% that voted for somebody else and just didn't comment below? Let us know.
Jared.
Yeah, Jared, goddamn. But that's going to do it here for the tip-off, which will take us into the main event. And for the main event, we are going to stick in the college football world because, well, in 24-ish hours, we've got the college football playoff underway. We talked a little bit about it last week, but this time we're putting the money where the mouth is. Last week we talked about what we thought about it, what we think, what we'd like to change, made some loose predictions, but nothing was set in stone. Now, Kelcey, your feet are to the fire, and I guess mine are too, because you can't have one without the other. We're going to have to put our money where our mouth is on this one. We're going to start in the top left corner. Ohio State taking on the University of Tennessee in the Horseshoe. I believe it's supposed to be 20-degree weather or something like that. It's going to be chilly. The spread last I saw was 7.5 points with Tennessee as the underdog. How are we feeling, Kelcey? Are you feeling the Bucks, or do you think the Volunteers will volunteer for the win?
One of these two schools have a song that's in a bunch of motion pictures, and everybody knows it. It's not Ohio State. They have a word that is a general word that they tried to copyright, but that is not the right thing. The important part about Rocky Top is, though, and this is why I'm going Tennessee, is in 24 hours, one man or one group of fans that's unknown yet has gone to every Waffle House in Columbus, Ohio, and played Rocky Top within a 24-hour period, which tells me Ohio State isn't ready if this news is already breaking and it's only Wednesday. If this news came out, this is like the duck floating down the river in Columbus. That's how big of a news piece this is, where, oh no, they're here. You're not ready, Ohio State, for what Tennessee's about to bring. That gaudy orange is about to invade Columbus Stadium, and you're going to hate every moment of it. And for me, I think Ohio State is checked out. And we talked about this last week. I think they have checked out. I think they're done. I think mentally they are just over it. I hope I'm wrong, because I do like to see a good game, especially versus a 9 versus 8 seed, or 7 versus 8 if you go by the ranking. I think this is an important matchup for Ohio State, but I think they're just mentally drained because, as I talked about last week, they put so much emphasis on Michigan, it's almost like they fall off if they don't beat Michigan. And so, yeah, I'm going Tennessee.
You know what I think is really interesting about this game, too, that I'm worried about? As I mentioned, it's going to be cold as heck in Columbus. Tennessee's practicing indoors, and I'm just like, are they ready to play in the cold? If they're ready to play in the cold, it's going to be interesting. But if they come out not ready for it, I mean, it doesn't really get cold in Tennessee, not like that.
Oh, it does in Knoxville.
We'll see if they're ready for it, because they have not had to play in that this year. It's been a pretty tough
Northerners go to vacation in the mountains around Knoxville, especially Ohioans.
Knoxville hasn't been as cold as it is going to be this weekend, though. It's been a pretty toasty season so far. So if they're ready to go when it's cold, I'm with you. Tennessee wins. They cover 7.5 regardless. My only concern is if they can come out of the gates firing, because that's kind of how Tennessee has played all year. When they come out of the gates, guns a-blazing, firing from the rocky top at the high ground, good luck everybody else. That's when they've cooked everybody. Problem is if they come out slow, like we saw against Georgia a little bit, where they're not firing right away, then they work themselves into it. But I agree with Ohio State. This is almost worse for them playing at home. I think it would have been better for them if they could go to Knoxville, because that crowd's, I'm not going to say it's going to boo, but you're going to feel the tension. They might boo, honestly. I'm not even saying.
Oh, they're going to boo.
It's going to be uncomfortable, because that, like you said, the Michigan loss, the way it ended, especially the brawl at the end, since then, the quote-unquote sportsmanship bill, which we're not going to get into that tomfoolery. Go check out our video on our YouTube page just about that, where we are nearly brought to tears with pain. I'm taking Tennessee. I think they cover. I feel really good about them covering. I think they really can win. My only question is, in the first quarter, if they win the first quarter, they win the game, basically. Yeah. If it's tied in the first quarter, then I still favor them. If Ohio State jumps out on them, like let's say Will Howard and Ashton Jenkins and squad are like, oh, yeah, we're not going to let this happen, and they come out firing, then it's different. But I'm leaning towards Tennessee as well. There's a lot pointing against Ohio State right now, if that makes sense. Like, all factors point against them, and this is not the situation where Ryan Day typically thrives.
No, if Tennessee can keep it close, that's important. But the most important part of Ohio State's game is that middle 4. It's not even a middle 8 like everybody talks about. It's a middle 4. From the 2-minute timeout to the first 2 minutes, they're done. They're out in the second half. Those seem to be their most explosive moments, or the most defining moments in their games. You look at the Indiana game, that fumble at the end of the first half really just led Indiana to get washed after that from Ohio State. Ohio State just rolled all over them. But in other games against Michigan, for example, that middle 4, they lost that middle 4, and then they lose the game at the end of the game. So Tennessee, if they can just keep it together through that middle part of the game, keep it close until the end. We know Ryan Day sucks in close game situations and in crucial situations like that, and we know that Chip Kelly is also bad at it. Maybe not to the same level as Ryan Day, but still bad. So, yeah, I agree. I think Tennessee has a great opportunity, obviously. So,
absolutely. So we're both leaning orange on this one as well. So I'm really looking forward to this game. On paper, it should be one of the best matchups in the first round. However, you did mention Indiana, so we're going to go and jump to the other side of the bracket. Is the battle for the state of Indiana, as Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Number 8 taking on number 5. Once again, a 7.5-point spread with the Indiana Hoosiers as the underdog. 1 loss on the season to that aforementioned Ohio State. Notre Dame with 1 loss on their record as well. I'm very intrigued about this one. As the one-time Notre Dame fan and the current Indiana fan that you are, I'm going to let you go ahead and lead. I'll let you lead the way on this one. Are you taking your boy Signetti, or are you rolling with your classic childhood Golden Domes?
It's funny because you and I have actually been to the campus at Notre Dame,
Yeah.
taking a picture of said Golden Dome, driven past that stadium. Um, but it's weird because I don't have the same love I once had for him as a kid. Obviously, going to another school changed my mind a little bit on that. Also, being let down every single time they have an opportunity to do something useful. So, in that mindset, I'm going to Indiana here. But caveat in this, just for any bettors out there, and you're going to use my word as anything, Indiana has gone against my pick every single time, whether I picked against them or picked for them. Every single opportunity they have let me down to bet on. So Notre Dame lets me down at all times, but specifically betting wise, Indiana lets me down betting. So I'm not betting on this game, but I am picking Indiana.
Interesting. All right, so you are taking the Hoosiers, no longer just a basketball school. You have them getting it done. So I'm gonna, not even because of what you said with the betting odds, though. I'm gonna go ahead and still take Notre Dame, not just because, like you said, that every time bet for Indiana, the opposite happens. I just think they're an awesome story. They deserve to be here. That offense was electric early in the season, but I've hammered it home, and I'm going to continue saying it. They need another couple of recruiting classes to build out some of those trenches, especially the front line, the defensive lines, the linebackers, the offensive line. Notre Dame is really, really good in those areas. That defense is still really good, led by Marcus Freeman. Offensively, that makes me sick watching them play sometimes, but when they get going and that ball is running with Leonard, especially, they are a pain to deal with. And copy and paste what I said with the other game. It's going to be cold. Like, it's not going to be warm there. Indiana is going to be cold. That's good. And I know they could both deal with it, but in those type of cases, the defensive always going to lean towards the defensive team when it gets cold out like that, especially a run heavy offense. Notre Dame also, weirdly enough, is 10-2 against the spread on the season. They've consistently done a good job. So I am going to take Notre Dame, and I'm going to take them to cover. I think it's a 10, maybe a 12-ish point win. I think Indiana does hang in there. They're 9-3 against the spread too. So it's not like either team's bad against it. When you get the records they do, you typically tend to do pretty well. I like Notre Dame, and I like Freeman's defense.
Those 3 games that Indiana, by the way, lost against the spread were the 3 games I bet on Indiana.
And I think 2 of them were the favorites, and then 1 was the Ohio State game too. So when they were a favorite is when they had the issue. It's when they were underdogs and cooking everybody before everyone realized.
Yeah. Oops.
Dang, so we both got the Volunteers advancing. You're going with your Indiana Hoosiers. I'm taking your old Notre Dame Fighting Irish on this one. We're gonna stick on that same side of the bracket. We're gonna head to this one's fun. This matchup's really, really fun just because I didn't think we were gonna get this one right after the very last Saturday of college football. SMU heading to Pennsylvania to take on Penn State. A slight variation. We got plus 8.5 points for SMU, minus 8.5 for Penn State. The Nittany Lions, Drew Aller has said he is coming back next year, so he will be returning. You mentioned Tyler Warren, tight end, running back, fullback, whatever you want to call him, extraordinaire, future top 15 pick of the Indianapolis Colts, hopefully. And a lot of just really good players. Carter on the defensive line, future top 5 pick. They're loaded. SMU is fun, and that offense led by Jennings. Once they're kind of in the same vein as the Volunteers when I look at them. Once they click, they could be as dangerous as anybody. When they click early is when they tend to roll people. We saw against Clemson, took them a minute to click, and they kind of played themselves out of the game because they didn't click until it was too late against a Clemson team, which I still don't think very fondly of, which we'll talk about here shortly. So I'm going to take Penn State. Not touching the spread on this one. Not touching the odds. If I had to take the spread, I will take Penn State because the record under James Franklin against teams that are ranked lower than them against the spread is ridiculous. Even to the point where sometimes they run it up and throw touchdowns on the last play of the game. So they win by 40. It's annoying except for against Bowling Green this year, despite me. But consistently, otherwise, they do pretty well. So I'm going to take Penn State. If I have to take the odds, I'll take the minus 8.5. Not a shot at SMU at all. I just think Penn State is really, really, really good in the tier that they're in, which is not the tier with the Oregons and those top 2 or 3 tiers, but that next tier, I think they're really, really good and will give a team like SMU fits, which weirdly enough, I think SMU would give absolute fits to maybe like 5 of the other teams in this first round. I think Penn State is just the one that'll have something for it.
That's fair. Okay, so let me be clear and say that I love that SMU made it, but I need SMU to perform.
They can't show up like they did against Clemson. I know they almost won, but
it can't be TCU Georgia national championship type of performance. I need SMU to show up and give it a competition. The problem is with that theory. Talk about weather.
It's going to be cold.
It sucks in Happy Valley. It is supposed to be mid to upper 20s at kickoff with winds out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, reaching 25 mile per hour gusts, and then with wind chill potentially in the 10s. So potential snow, by the way, potential blustery wind blown snow at the same time, which is for a team that relies on a passing game and air raid offense, like the absolute dreaded worst case scenario weather-wise.
And
With
then
that said, I'm still going
defensively,
SMU.
Tyler Warren in that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Then you took a turn.
With that said, I'm still going SMU. And the reason why is Penn State has Drew Aller still. And while I don't think Drew Aller is a bad quarterback, I think when it comes down to making a play, especially in adverse weather conditions, he's not there. And I also think the receivers aren't quite there as much as they once were. Their tight ends, obviously finishing 7th in the Heisman candidacy there. I've talked about that all year. Their tight ends are really good. Have always been really good. They will continue to be really good. But in this case, I think SMU has too many weapons that will figure out how to play in these cold conditions. As long as it doesn't snow, I think they have a better opportunity. But if there starts to be snow that sticks, that field gets slick, cleats stop sticking in the ground, that's where problems happen. That's where I would say go against SMU. But for me, I'm going to pick SMU because I need them to win, just like I need Indiana to perform against Notre Dame. Like, I need this to happen. So I don't want to hear the complaints. You should have had Bama in there. No, they don't deserve to be there. Let SMU cook. And if there's one bad performance, so be it. But at the same time, just to shut them up, I need a good performance from SMU.
What I will say, too, is I was wrong about Penn State. This year, they've actually been kind of dog poop against the spread, so I will retract that part about the statement. I will still take Penn State, but I'm not going to have good reasoning behind it. I'm going to stick with the cold and everything I mentioned. And as we mentioned, Drew Aller, maybe he can't make the play in that situation, but Tyler Warren playing quarterback can, and he will do it. He will find a way to throw that 30-yard touchdown to the other tight end, and they've shown that they will put him there. But in all seriousness, if it does snow, I think it's a wrap for SMU. I think if it's windy, like severely windy, like changing the trajectory of a ball beyond 10 yards windy, they're cooked. If weather is permitting is okay, then I think it gets really dangerous. I will say if they do a TCU versus Georgia, though, like you mentioned, they get a second death penalty for that, because that, after everything that's all the talk that's going through with them and Alabama, who should be and who shouldn't be, I agree they deserve to be here, but they can't pull a TCU Georgia. Like, it has to be closer than that. Otherwise, they might not be coming back for a while, even if they go undefeated and win a conference championship. I digress. Like, that was a little dramatic, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they can't do that TCU BS.
I don't disagree.
Absolutely. So a little bit of difference here, but that's going to take us to the last and final matchup, is the Battle of Oranges, with a conference championship winner and a conference champion runner-up. Yet the conference championship winner is at the bottom of the rankings, with the Clemson Tigers take on the Texas Longhorns. Clemson wins the ACC to sneak themselves into the playoffs, still sitting ranked 16th, 12th in the playoff, plus 11.5-point underdogs for the Tigers. Do you think they get it done, or do you think this is just Texas rolling?
No, this is going to be Texas moment. I think, again, we talk about teams when they get up for games and then they fell, and they just don't win. And then what do they do next? Ohio State, I just talked about. Texas with Sarkisian and under Sarkisian, when they get up for a big game and they lose, they come out and they punish the next team they play. And that's the difference between Ohio State and Texas this year specifically. Not in the past. I'm not going to try to poop on Ohio State that much here, but at the same time, like, that's the difference between Ryan Day as a head coach versus Steve Sarkisian as a head coach. Steve Sarkisian is an example of a guy who's messed up, made mistakes, and built his career back up. And that's an important part of this. Ryan Day hasn't had that moment. He might be having that moment, but he hasn't had that moment yet. And that is imbued into his players, into his quarterback, into his running back, into his linemen, into his defense. Like, those type of moments can change your team personality-wise, because you're showing an extra fiery passion to come out and just not necessarily hurt the other team, but like put a hurting on the other team. That's the difference here. And Dabo Swinney on the other side, I have no nice words to say about Dabo Swinney as a head coach anymore. They are winning in spite of him. he should have been gone last year, and this is the worst thing that could happen to a Clemson fan base who wants a new coach. Like that's where I'm at with this. Where if it wasn't for their run game and Cade Klubnik showing the reason why he is as highly ranked as a quarterback athletically as he has been, like if it wasn't for those two pieces, this team doesn't exist right now. This team is 18th, 19th, 20th in the rankings, not even sniffing the playoff. But this is one of those moments where I hope Texas puts a beating on them, and I also hope it for another reason. I just mentioned SMU needs to perform. I need Clemson to suck it up. So while SMU performs, so that way nobody can be like, oh, you should have been over SMU. No, what about Clemson? What about picking Clemson as the team that shouldn't be here? Because they shouldn't be here. Yes, you won the ACC, but should you really be here? Should this be Michigan instead? Or should this be Miami instead? Probably. But here we are with Clemson against Texas team that should blow them out. And I'm going to go Texas, and I hope Clemson gets just so disappointed.
Well, I won't pile on the Dabo Swinney hate there because you got that pretty well covered. There's no point in me.
The man can't recruit offensive linemen. That's my biggest beef with Dabo Swinney in the world.
Oh, no, I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot without having elite all-time quarterbacks in college, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence and Hunter Renfrow carrying the team. It hasn't quite been the same without those guys. So no complaints here. But I will say Texas is only 7-6 against the spread this year. So they're not exactly the juggernaut, but that's a little misleading because when you look at some of the spreads, minus 37 against Mississippi State, they won 35-13. Oh, darn. Vanderbilt, you're minus 17, and Vanderbilt's weirdly annoyingly good. You won 27-24. Then you look at Arkansas, you're a 12.5-point favorite. You win 20-10. Kentucky, you're an 18-point favorite. You win 31-14. And then the two Georgia losses. So while they're against the spread record's not great, it's because they're expected to kill everybody. So it's kind of hard to kill everybody every single week. Everything you said, though, about that big loss to the Georgia team, yeah, I kind of like them to bounce back after that one and give hell. I know it didn't happen as much this year, considering they played Vanderbilt right after Georgia this year and squeaked by. That Vanderbilt team is just annoying. That doesn't count. That team does that to everybody. Like they annoy everybody. Like they're hard against good teams. Like it makes no sense.
Well, they're hard against bad teams too, because Auburn lost to them as well. Diego Pavia, 2-0 in Auburn, by the way.
That's an Auburn issue, not a Vanderbilt issue. But that's
right. I know. I'm just they are good against bad teams too.
They're good against good teams and Auburn. Everyone else not so much. But I expect Texas to come out here. There is talk about Quinn Ewers coming back. Maybe he transfers. Maybe we'll see what goes on with that. If he is looking to come back, he's going to come out here and try and put on a show on one of these because he's going to try and get some real NIL money to go play at North Carolina and Bill Belichick. I kid a little bit there. Or he's going to look to up his draft stock, considering rumors among scouts, it ranges from second-round pick to undrafted, which I think is a little embellishment. I don't know if I believe that. Rumor mills are rumor mills for a reason. I think he's going to go out there and try and put on a show. I think he's going to try and work himself into that third quarterback taken range somewhere in there. I think he's going to try and get himself into that range as well. Or if he does want to come back and get one more NIL deal with another school, something like that, you're not going to get that without cooking Clemson. And I think he's going to come out ready to cook Clemson. Everything you said about Sarkisian, couldn't agree more. They're using a little bit of the two quarterback system with Arch Manning running read options now. Who would ever thought Manning would be a designated running quarterback? I never thought I'd see the day. Isaiah Bond and those guys at receiver still get it done. Just because they struggled with Georgia, and by struggled, I mean they won until they broke the starting quarterback. Then the backup gave them an issue. If they don't injure Carson Beck, they don't play right now. They have a bye. As weird as that is to say. I'm gonna take Texas. I think they will cover. They'll win by more than 14. Clemson's just really not that good. They got to this spot, but you can't really say when you look at Indiana where they earned the spot, quote unquote. You look at SMU where they earned their spot, Penn State where they earned their spot. Clemson kind of got to the spot because Miami wet the bed and they were at the right place at the right time, and SMU stunk it up for the first half. So We're going to take Texas. We're going to take them to cover too. So for mine, we got Tennessee to cover, Texas to cover, Notre Dame to cover, Penn State to cover. Sounds like either a 4-0 or an 0-4 week, no in between there.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you go 2-2 is what I hope.
That way you can go 4-0.
Yes, exactly. Because obviously I have
the other two, those will still both end up 2-2.
Exactly, yeah. No, because obviously I have Tennessee, Indiana, SMU, and Texas advancing. One last point on Texas, by the way, in the Carson Beck situation. Does that tell you more about Texas not being prepared for something that they never thought would happen? Or does that tell you more about Georgia getting better when Carson Beck is finally taken off the board, like I've talked about many, many times.
Yes,
Yeah.
both. Just
By the
considering the backup quarterback was so unbelievably, he's a freshman number 1 ranked athlete quarterback who is just playing some schoolyard BS and it worked. It's something you can't really prepare for.
Yeah. But, one last thing on that is people who don't think Quinn Ewers should be a first-round quarterback, stop it. At this point in time, Trey Lance was a top 5 pick.
Anthony
And
Richardson
Quinn Ewers is 10 times better of a quarterback than Trey Lance.
better than Mac Jones even. I think he's still a first-round pick. Don't believe me, I agree. I think he's the 3rd quarterback that'd be coming out right now. So I agree. Like
we've talked about these situations before, especially in like other sports where somebody's been on the microscope for like their entire career. And Quinn Ewers has been. He was the guy that left school early to go get a bag at Ohio State, not play it down, and then transfer to back to his home state of Texas because they couldn't do NIL at Ohio State after he bagged a 7-figure deal. Like, he's like, oh, I'm going to go get my bag, and then I'm going to come back to Texas and perform. And he's done that. He has performed for Texas while there. People, like, the idea, this whole theory that Texas is back, it's because Quinn Ewers is there that Texas has climbed their way back. Because Sarkisian and Ewers has that momentum going. Let's stop overanalyzing things. Sometimes the answer is just that simple. Quinn Ewers is actually a good quarterback.
He is very good. I agree. You don't have to tell me to. I think he's very good. I think he's quarterback 3 right now, and I think the ceiling. I
can't think of who is above him other than Shedeur.
I would put Cam Ward above him right now, but it's also not draft season. So that's obviously it's not fair. Draft season. We haven't got into it yet. This is pure what I see randomly on Saturdays, where it's like, oh, that guy made me, that guy, ish, that sort of thing. 6 and 1 and half a dozen other. We're in agreement here. This is not it. This is a Quinn Ewers fan club. There's also maybe he just likes college football and wants a natty. So maybe he comes back. Problem is with Arch Manning there, I don't know if he can come back to Texas. I don't know if they want to roll with Arch next. That's where it gets. That's the downside about having arguably a top 3 or 4 college quarterback potentially as your backup that everyone wants to see. And I say that because in limited action we saw he was awesome. So that's why.
Fun fact, by the way, if Malik Murphy stays at Duke, if Quinn Ewers does go to North Carolina, Malik Murphy was the backup to Quinn Ewers. And they would have a North Carolina-Duke rivalry with the starter for Texas and Malik Murphy, the backup for Texas, on the other side.
And depending on how things worked out, you could have Arch and Ewers coming out in the same draft class, similar to Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams last year. Like, it's funny how life rhymes sometimes. It's very interesting. Not saying that will happen. All of this could be a null and void if Quinn Ewers wins a couple of these. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go to the NFL.
And Spencer might make more money in his career than Caleb now, surprisingly.
Yeah, well, let's hold our horses on that too. Like, Spencer hasn't exactly lit it up in his short amount of time.
Oh, I'm including his NIL money from college.
I don't know. That USC bag was pretty thick. I mean, you don't get nails like that like Caleb had for cheap. Like, those things aren't cheap now.
That's fair. That is very fair.
Ask any girl in the world will tell you those nails aren't cheap. But that's what we have for the college football playoff. Let us know down below what you think of the first round and how you think it's going to play out. But that's going to do it for the main event, which is now going to take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show. And that is, of course, crunch time. And for crunch time, this is where we like to have a little bit of fun. And you know what, Kelcey? I didn't really give a title for this one, but we're going to call it Kelcey's Revenge Tour. Kelcey does a victory lap. Kelcey gets a chance to show off. And I'll go and set the stage for us here before you get a chance to go off. Anyone who's watched us knows draft coverage is one of our favorite things. We don't like to. It's a crapshoot at the end of the day. It's all educated guesses. Nobody actually knows. We're all taking educated guesses, which is why normally sometimes you put yourself out there for better or for worse. Problem is, if you're a dickhead, you're going to get called a dickhead. And one of your favorite ones from a couple years ago was a guy we saw run the 40-yard dash in freakishly fast time, and Nick Bonito. We got to see him in person. You made the hot take while we were hanging out with our good friend from Corner Booth, Jared, talking about rookies. You made a bold claim that he could be the next Micah Parsons as far as some of his abilities.
Pass rushing, specifically.
Exactly. The fact that he's such a freak athlete that you can kind of throw all over the place. It wasn't even he is Micah Parsons. It wasn't even he'll be as good as Micah Parsons. It's that they have similar traits. Kind of like I said with Jared versus Myles Garrett. Clearly, he's not Myles Garrett. Not yelling at you, yelling at everyone else. But you look at their athletic freakishness, they're similar. Well, Kelcey, I'll let you go ahead and take a look here. Our good friend from 2 years ago, Waka Flocka Batch, cannot play the run, cannot drop into coverage. That limits his play time. What a joke comparing to a person who's played 4 positions and was great at run, blitz, and coverage. Bonito is a liability. So I'll go ahead. or a liability in every scenario other than 3rd and 6 plus. He may get 10 snaps a game, but sure, Micah Parsons 2.0. We'll kind of just add on to this here really quick. You know what? Let's take a look. What exactly has Nick Bonito done this year? 11 and a half sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, which was really an interception. Returned to the house for 50 yards after a receiver threw a pass. Touchdown. Interception, 71 yards, 3 pass deflections, touchdown. Comparatively, we could take a look at what Micah Parsons has done so far in his career, which, once again, not saying Nick Bonito is Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons, a bunch of sacks, freakishly athletic, fumble recoveries, forced fumbles, pass deflections, kind of similar. So, Kelcey, I set the stage for you. Would take your victory lap, my good friend.
Yeah, I almost want to just play the video and let it speak for itself. But no, it's honestly, it's hilarious. Because the whole point of the conversation was around Nick Bonito's athleticism. He was coming out in a class with some of the best talented defensive linemen we had ever seen, some of the most freakish athletes. And Nick Bonito at Oklahoma was a guy who he popped at times, but it was always in the same situation. It was always pass rushing. It was always taking on kind of those NFL style tackles, the ones who set the edge and make you dive inside. And he would just run around them. That's what I saw. That's my theory behind Nick Bonito being a good pass rusher, because like Micah Parsons, he just ran around guys that are supposed to be NFL ready to hold down an edge. For a couple years, obviously. It took some time to get him there. But we're finally here with Nick Bonito. I do feel good about it. Most importantly, the guy who said something, I appreciate your take, but it was wrong. Suck it up, get over it, get out of here. I look forward to seeing you back in the comments again. I hope after this, and I hope you keep the same energy. Because if you don't, well, by the way, we have your, username, so I will be tweeting this at you at this point in time. But no, it happens a lot actually, where we make a random call and it works out. The Russell Wilson Denver being one of them. It so happens to be Denver that I've picked my best takes on. But we have hot takes that just fell. The Arizona Cardinals being 13-3. As one of those takes in our early years. My pick of the Steelers this year, obviously not true. And it's funny that everybody has an opinion, because it's true. Everybody does have an opinion. But the saying goes, everybody has an asshole and nobody wants to see it. So same concept. If you can make an educated conversation, which is what we try to do, I love to hear it. But in this situation, haha, na boo-boo, get out of here. I'll take my roses now.
All right, that does it for our petty segment of the year as well. The year's almost over and we haven't been petty yet, so we had to get that one out there as well. I figured you'd enjoy that.
I have to get one a year. I failed so hard on the Steelers that at this point in time, I just have to I have to take my moment.
I had to have a redemption tour. And you know what? That's been 2 years in the making as well, too. So that's what I think was kind of hilarious. Is after he had that interception / fumble recovery, like, damn, I remember that comment from Kelcey. And you know what? One of these days, I'm going to have proof that my head's not photoshopped for that person who said I had a photoshopped head in the comments, too.
I don't know how do we prove that? Because you have to be on a photo to get it. So it's Photoshop got too advanced too quickly.
It's a little bit too good, but you hear the hollow sounds in there. Like it's real. You hear the rattling in there. There's not a lot going on there, but it is real. But
look, he retired from the NFL for a reason, guys.
Derek Carr got me killed entirely too many times. I mean, after what Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence did to me in college,
let's be honest. It was the taxi you got for Devontae.
I'm still not happy about that. That was still uncomfortable. I had shotgun and I was uncomfortable because Devontae's long legs were pushing in the back. But that's going to
for those that know, they know. And if you don't know, just go watch a couple episodes ago. We make the time.
They figured it out by now, I'm sure. But that's going to do it for us here on the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for hanging out with us here. Be sure to tune in the next couple of weeks. We got some very fun shows to round out the year as well. A little bit different than what we've done recently. I think you're definitely going to want to check those out too. But we will see you all again next week.